The program will begin in 1 minute. The program will begin in 30 seconds. The program will now begin.
Hello and welcome to the Penn South 2024 Annual Meeting of Shareholders. My name is Amber Nicosia and I'm the president of the co-op. Thank you for joining us for this meeting. We appreciate your interest and your involvement. We will be giving brief presentations on a number of important topics. I'll be highlighting 3 new community spaces that opened on our campus this year, and we'll give you a peek inside. Our general manager will talk about some of the major infrastructure projects we're working on and others that are upcoming. Our treasurer will highlight key areas of our finances and discuss an overall financial outlook. We'll review construction of the MAG Partners building and look back at highlights from community events. Finally, we'll hear brief remarks from our elected officials. But to kick things off, let me first introduce you to my colleagues on the board of directors. Howard Babbage, Matthew Barilli, Charles Baer, Morris Benjamin, Lloyd Blazin, Jenna Feist, David Goldscheft, Luana Green, Ari Khan, Kim Oliver, Rosa Reyes, Robert Sikorsky, David Smoke, and Sasha Tabachman-Smith. This year, Robert Sikorsky decided to retire from his service on the board after 21 years. His term ends with this year's annual election, and I want to take this moment to give Bob thanks for his years of service to our community through this role. Now I'll turn things over to General Manager Ryan Dietzick, who will introduce key members of the Penn South staff.
Hello and welcome. My name is Ryan Dietzick, and I am the General Manager of Penn South. First, let me say thank you for joining us at this year's annual meeting. I am pleased to introduce some key members of the Penn South staff. Assistant General Manager in charge of administration, Lisa Gluck. Assistant General Manager in charge of operations, John Seymour. Security Director, Larry O'Neill. Evening Security Supervisor, Raheem Soto. Powerhouse Chief, Ed Johnson. Maintenance Manager, Johnny Kolyanovit. Porter Supervisor, Medzid Balademic. Apartment Restoration Manager, Jonathan Rivera. Maintenance Administrative Assistant, Michael Pierre-Louis. Maintenance Clerk, Charles Reed. Financial Manager, Gary Bacrock. Assistant Finance Manager, Giselle Grogan. Receptionist, Amelia Weisanen. Apartment Transfer and Shareholder Orientation Manager Marcia Dwyer. Education and Communications Director Mario Mazzoni. Human Resource Manager Tom Maloney. Executive Assistant Blair Desmond. Facilities Coordinator Matthew Coy. Legal Coordinator Monica Zayak. Administrative Assistant Scarlett Johnson. These are just a few members of our team. There are more than 100 employees in total who work at Penn South. We're lucky to have such a skilled and committed staff. I want to give a big thank you for everything they do all year long.
I'd also like to thank our staff for their dedication. We benefit from their work with well-maintained buildings, reliable service, and a great quality of life. One of the things we'll remember most from this past year is watching a new building rise on the corner of West 26th Street and 8th Avenue. Penn South is leasing this parcel to MAG Partners, and the developer is constructing a new building at their expense, as you may have seen in recent months. The groundbreaking ceremony was in October of 2023. Just a few months later, in March, the building was already starting to rise above ground. It topped off in May, and right now workers are installing the brick facade and building the interior spaces. Many people have remarked to me that even though the building isn't finished yet, they appreciate the aesthetic and how well it fits in with our surrounding community. Throughout the week, General Manager Ryan Dietzick and I actively engage with MAG Partners team. We make sure that our community's concerns are addressed and that work proceeds as planned. The co-op hired professional consultants to verify that all aspects of the project conform to the terms of our ground lease. I want to remind everyone how important this project is to preserving affordability at Penn South. The old commercial building that used to be on this site was in need of major structural repairs and had turned into a financial liability. Through a ground lease, we were able to avoid tens of millions of dollars in construction cost and lost rent, and we managed to increase our revenue for this site. MAG Partners is now paying over $2.1 million to Penn South every year in rent, including while the building is still under construction. This is more revenue than we ever collected from the old building, and the rent will go up according to a schedule. The stable cash flow is a win for our community. This is the type of creative problem solving that will keep our co-op stable and financially healthy for the next generation. In the coming years, another big challenge we face is reducing our carbon footprint. We want to do our part to improve environmental practices at Penn South. We are also facing pressure to comply with stringent energy codes. General Manager Ryan Dietzick will share a bit about this topic.
For Penn South to meet new environmental regulations, it will take a lot of ingenuity and investment of resources. If the co-op is unable to comply, we may be hit with huge fines on an ongoing basis. Right now, we are in the process of replacing a diesel engine in our powerhouse with a new natural gas engine. The engine is still being built, and the installation is on track to be complete by the middle of 2025. This project will cost over $2 million, but with natural gas prices cheaper than oil, we will recoup our investment over time. This investment will also bring us closer to complying with local law dealing with emissions. Local laws also require us to reduce the overall carbon footprint of our buildings. We've already invested heavily in making our operation more efficient in areas like heating, cooling, and lighting. It would be challenging to take the next step by producing energy from renewables like solar, wind, or geothermal heat pumps. We've been exploring these technologies for years, and we have shared our findings along the way. In some cases, we are limited by the physical constraints of our property. In other cases, renewable energy technologies would only be feasible if we reconnected to the Con Ed grid, so we are exploring that option. For those who want to take a deeper dive on this topic, please refer to the annual reports from 2019 and 2023, which are on our website. I want everyone to know that this area is at the forefront of our minds, and we are constantly monitoring advances in technology and seeking funding opportunities.
Staying on the topic of our environment, I'm proud to share our success with the new electric vehicle charging stations at our campus. We opened 2 EV chargers this January. We celebrated this event with a dedication that included many of our elected officials. The EV charging stations are located behind our 9th Avenue retail building and are open to the public. The electricity comes from our own powerhouse, and I'm proud to say that our facility has a smaller carbon footprint per unit of electricity than Con Edison. EV chargers are still in short supply, so I'm thrilled that we're doing our part to help encourage a transition to electric vehicles. The EV chargers are also generating new revenue to the co-op. This is one more initiative, like our ground lease with MAG Partners, where the co-op is finding innovative ways to boost revenue and keep costs down for residents. At this point, I'll turn things over to our treasurer, Matthew Barilli, who will review our overall financial situation.
Hi, my name is Matthew Barilli, and I am the Penn South Treasurer. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'm glad to report that the financial picture for Penn South has improved from last year. Our budget is very tight, but we have taken some necessary steps to get on the right track. In recent years, we reported that our expenses were rising much faster than our income. For 7 years in a row, we only raised maintenance fees by 1% a year. The 2 years prior to that, there were no increases at all. This was not sustainable. The board spent months analyzing our income, expenses, and upcoming needs. We called in our third-party auditors for their expertise. To make sure we are meeting our expenses, the board voted to raise maintenance by 7.5% this year and to increase the cost of parking and storage amenities over a 3-year period. Just as important, our minimum increase each year will now be 3%. This was a tough decision for the board, but it was necessary. I'm proud we had the courage to take responsible action. I want to be very clear that we are not yet out of the woods. Our auditors had initially recommended a maintenance increase of 10% this year based on our upcoming needs. We were able to eliminate the fuel pass-through. This is not because fuel prices have gone down, it's actually the opposite. The fuel pass-through is for temporary spikes in the cost of fuel, but experts expect prices to remain much higher than they were in the prior decade. For this reason, we eliminated the line item and folded this expense back into basic maintenance. The annual reports booklet goes into detail about our finances, and I encourage you to take the time to read it. In our presentation today, I'm just going to highlight a few areas we are looking at carefully. Our insurance costs shot up in recent years. In 2020, we were paying $1.4 million. But with the most recent contract we signed, we are now paying $3.45 million. That's a 245% increase in only 5 years. The higher cost is for the same level of coverage. It was other factors related to the insurance industry as a whole that drove up prices. The details are in my section of the annual reports booklet. Next, we are looking closely at first sales income. This is the money we collect when apartments sell at the triple equity tier for the first time. This has provided us more than $5 million annually for each of the last 10 years. That represents 10 to 15% of our total income. However, this money will start to dry up. We will need to replace this revenue. These are some of the issues that still need to be tackled. I also want to point out that we are on track to end fiscal year 2025 with $5.2 million in cash. This is significantly less than recommended. Our auditors advised us that we should have $7.5 million on hand at all times in case of unforeseen circumstances. That amount is equivalent to 3 months of maintenance payments from shareholders and is the industry standard. Finally, we need to raise enough revenue to keep our buildings in good repair. There are expensive infrastructure projects that need to be addressed in the coming years. Many of these are multi-million-dollar undertakings. Our general manager, Ryan Dietzick, will summarize a few of these projects.
For a complete list of the major capital projects at Penn South, refer to the annual reports booklet. Today, I will highlight 2 projects that we will focus on in the coming year. We will continue working on the replacement of our underground pipes. Eventually, we will need to replace all of the underground utilities, but this is a costly project. That's why we are doing it in stages over the course of years. We have been lobbying our local government for a long time to make this type of work eligible for tax abatements. I am hopeful this will occur soon. In some areas of the campus, we will need to proceed regardless of where things stand with legislation. If we wait until the pipes fail, repairing them in an emergency scenario is always more expensive. Another project we cannot delay is the plumbing that provides cooking gas to the apartments. In 2016, the city enacted much stricter inspection requirements for natural gas infrastructure. Ever since then, I've been working with our engineers on a plan to replace key sections of pipe without shutting down gas to the entire building. Shutdowns require weeks or months of repeated visits to apartments before gas service is restored. We came up with an innovative solution. It involves installing a new pipe main on the ground floor level, adjacent to the existing one. The new pipe is connected to one riser. Once that is put back in service, we shift the remaining risers to the new pipe. At no point, gas service is shut off to the entire building. Our approach saves us more than just disruption. It also saves us a lot of money. Compared with a traditional approach, our method is about $700,000 less expensive per single core building and about $1.4 million less per double core building. Considering the age of our infrastructure, we expect this work will be needed in other buildings. These are just some of the infrastructure projects on the horizon. For a complete rundown of our upcoming work, I refer you again to the annual reports booklet.
All of this work is critical to keeping our property in good condition. Penn South is now more than 62 years old, and one of our key challenges is replacing our aging infrastructure in a cost-effective way. We must keep the property in good condition while maintaining our affordability. Good maintenance of our property is also a condition of our HUD loan. This loan is saving us millions per year, and it's crucial that we continue to receive good marks on our inspections. Ryan will share more about upcoming changes to this procedure.
HUD is applying stricter standards. The new rules focus on conditions inside individual apartments. This is challenging for management because we may not know of the items that need to be addressed. For the first time, these inspections will evaluate appliances. In Penn South, refrigerators and stoves are the responsibility of the shareholder to maintain. However, if the inspector finds these faulty, the co-op as a whole will be docked points. Please make sure to keep your appliances in good condition. As always, if you need repair, if you need extermination, or if you are concerned about something like mold or mildew, please call the maintenance office to schedule an appointment.
At this point in our program, I'd like to shift our focus onto some of the community initiatives from this past year. At Penn South, we do more than just provide affordable housing. We work to build a strong sense of community. One way we do this is by making space available to residents who want to gather together around shared interests. This year has been especially exciting since we opened 3 new spaces for residents on our campus. It's my pleasure to give everyone a peek inside these facilities as part of today's program. The Penn South Art Studio opened in Building 10 this September. It's a shared space where visual artists in our co-op can work in a variety of media. Some of you will remember that we used to rent out private studio space to artists. We had to reclaim those private studios for a major construction project, but the board has always wanted to bring back a place for artists to work. This time, we wanted to do things under a different model. Rather than private rooms and long waiting lists, we develop an open studio that's available to everyone in the co-op. Penn South artists now have a place where they can come together, share their talents, and be part of a creative community. Artists of all experience levels are welcome to join for a small fee. We also created an adult recreation room opening in Building 2 this fall. Many shareholders have asked for a space where adults can gather for games and other group activities. The board wanted to meet this demand while also keeping the youth room a kids-centric environment. Management consolidated supply rooms to free up space in Building 2. The adult rec room features a pool table, a ping pong table, a card table, darts, and other games. For a small monthly fee, cooperators age 18 and older may become a member. Finally, we've created a new outdoor space for shareholders to gather. On West 25th Street, we transformed a fence-off patch of lawn into an inviting outdoor gathering space. We are calling this the Green Space. It features a stone pathway that winds around benches, barbecues, raised planters, and a water feature. Since it opened this past July, residents have been using the space to grill, do gardening, host small gatherings, and relax outdoors. It's a popular spot for socializing, and gardeners are helping make the place even more lush. Even though it's a new space, it already has some of the highest membership numbers of any facility in the co-op. The space is open to all residents for a membership fee and a commitment to help maintain the space. Once you're a member, you can reserve one of the barbecue grills to have a cookout. It's wonderful to see this part of our grounds come alive this way. Penn South is unique for our open spaces, and I'm glad that we're opening up more of it for active uses. These community facilities were envisioned many years ago, and it took years to bring them to life. A lot of work occurred behind the scenes, and I'd like to thank General Manager Ryan Dietzick for making these projects a priority and orchestrating the physical work. I also want to give special thanks to board members Lloyd Blazin and David Goldchef for bringing the vision of these spaces to life through their work on the Shared Space Committee of the board. It took years of commitment and diligence to get where we are today, and hundreds of people will benefit from these efforts for years to come.
Another exciting initiative this year is the expansion of our electronic key system. For more than 15 years, we have been providing residents with electronic keys to access facilities. This includes the 3 new facilities that opened this year, which Amber just shared information about. This fall, we're expanding this electronic key system by allowing residents to use e-key at their building entrance. In addition to cards, we are also offering keychain fobs for those who prefer. Hold your card or fob up to the reader. When the light blinks and you hear a beep, the door will unlock. The same key will open the doors to your building and facilities where you have a membership. If you have a reduced rate parking spot, you can use the e-key to enter the back gate. When this system is fully operational, shareholders will be able to request an e-key through the resident portal.
As always, community events are among the highlights of the year. The Parents Committee Halloween Bash and Spring Candy Hunt are always among the huge hits. The group teamed up again with Penn South Social Services, known to many as PSSS, for another very successful flea market this year. On May 18, vendors lined West 25th Street and hundreds of shoppers perused offerings and socialized with their neighbors. This is one of the events cooperators look forward to each spring, and it's a great way to celebrate the return of warmer weather. About a month later, on June 22nd, the community gathered in the active recreation area for the Community Day Barbecue. The Parents Committee hosted this event with support from the Board of Directors. It is always one of the highlights of the year. Volunteers tended to the grill and gave out food and drink while musicians from our community performed. Children played in the bouncy house, and overall, it was a great day of socializing amongst friends and neighbors. Thanks to all the volunteers who make this possible. This year, we also resumed our open house campus tours, hosting one in the spring and one in the fall. In the next part of our program, we welcome 3 guest speakers. Penn South enjoys a special relationship with our elected officials, and I'm glad they've taken time to record greetings for everyone. I'm happy to introduce Eric Botcher. Eric is finishing his 3rd year as our representative in the New York City Council. You'll see Eric at many of our community events, and behind the scenes, he's working hard on many initiatives. This year, I want to especially highlight Eric's role in securing funds for Penn South. Eric helped advocate for Penn South to receive $700,000 to offset the cost of some of our upcoming infrastructure projects, including the replacement of electrical submeters. This kind of support is valuable as we work to keep Penn South affordable, and we appreciate the advocacy. Let me now welcome Eric to share a few words.
Hi friends, I'm Eric Botcher, your city council member, your neighbor, and I'm so honored to be here at your annual Penn South shareholders meeting. I want you to know that serving as your city council member is the honor and privilege of my lifetime as I come close to finishing my 1st term in office. My team and I every day serve you with one core mission, and that is to make New York City a better place to live and everything that entails. We are working to address sanitation in our city, challenging the Department of Sanitation to do even more to keep our streets clean, to reform their sanitation practices. I'm so excited that curbside composting is coming back to Penn South, and it will be citywide, mandatory composting citywide, offered to every building as a result of city council legislation that we passed last year. We're fighting to remove graffiti from our community, allocating $50,000 to have graffiti removal all across our district, supplementary sanitation services with ACE, which employs formerly homeless New Yorkers to help keep our neighborhoods clean. All these things towards addressing quality of life issues in our community. We're working to keep New York safer. Every day I'm in communication with the captains of our local precincts, working to address public safety issues throughout our neighborhoods. We're working to address the mental health crisis that is far too prevalent on our streets. You don't have to walk far in our neighborhood to see how badly we've been failing on the issue of mental health. I've been fighting to get inpatient psychiatric beds restored in our city, long-term residential housing for people suffering severe mental illness. And I'm excited that my legislation that will require all family homeless shelters to offer on-site mental health services is now in effect. And we now have families in family homeless shelters receiving mental health services that they did not receive just a few months ago as a result of our legislation. Penn South is a bastion of affordability in what has become one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the United States. And my mission is to ensure that Penn South remains affordable, limited equity affordable for generations to come. And my colleagues and I are doing everything we can to support you. In this year's budget, I allocated $750,000 to Penn South Cooperative to help you with the rising costs that you're experiencing. Buildings all across New York are also suffering from the rising costs of everything from fuel to construction to staffing, and you need more assistance so that those costs don't get passed down to you. So I committed to doing everything I can in every budget cycle, every step of the way, to ensuring that Penn South remains affordable and to help address the rising costs of living here in Chelsea. I'm excited that the Target is open on 23rd and 8th, another source of affordable groceries and goods for our community. The Lidl supermarket that's going to be opening on 26th and 8th will be another source of affordable groceries. These are so important so that people aren't forced, especially seniors on fixed incomes, aren't forced to travel long distances to get affordable goods and groceries. All of our work is designed to help make your life better, our neighbors' lives better, and to fight for the most vulnerable in New York City. I'm so proud to be supporting senior services in our district with Penn South Program for Seniors, Penn South Social Services, ensuring that your funding remains strong, continuing the council funding that you get from my office to help serve the seniors at Penn South. Thank you all for everything you do at Penn South Program for Seniors, Penn South Social Services. I want to thank Amber Nicosia and the board at Penn South for all your great work, the staff at Penn South, all the volunteers. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to serve you. I want to invite you to reach out to our office with anything that you need. Our phone number is 212-564-7757. You can email me at district3@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for being such great neighbors, constituents, friends, and I am so excited to continue serving you as your city council member.
I'd like to introduce Brad Hoylman-Siegel, who represents Penn South in the New York State Senate. Brad has been a consistent ally of Penn South and is a champion of many causes important to us. I welcome Brad to share a few words.
Hello, Penn South. I'm State Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel, and I'm proud to represent the Penn South community in New York State's 47th Senate District from Christopher Street all the way up to West 103rd, or as I like to say, from the gay bars to Zay bars. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share some of what we have accomplished this past year and what we're doing to focus on the year to come. I want to start by thanking you for reelecting me once again to serve as your state senator and for turning out the vote to support New York State's Equal Rights Amendment, which passed by an overwhelming majority. This past year, we passed a $237 billion budget in Albany, making massive investments in affordable housing, mass transit, education, and climate protection. We also secured dedicated funding for NORCs like Penn South, where I toured just this morning with your president and general manager. In terms of policy, we got quite a bit done this year. For example, we passed my bill, first in the nation, a local news tax credit to help our local news outlets hire and retain their journalists. In response to concerns from our constituents, we took steps to address public safety, including passing my bill with D.A. Bragg to expand hate crimes protections and my legislation to combat retail theft by holding online sellers of stolen goods accountable for their actions. We also gave New York City law enforcement greater authority to shut down all of those illegal cannabis shops. After making that change, New York City has been able to shut down over 1,000 illegal cannabis stores, including some right here in our district. In terms of street safety, this was the year we were finally able to make my Sammy's Law a reality. Sammy's Law allows New York City to lower its speed limits without first seeking approval from Albany. And we know that reduced speed limits do save lives. To address the scourge of mopeds and motorbikes and e-bikes on our streets, and reduce the number of unlicensed vehicles, we passed my legislation to require mopeds to be registered at their point of sale before they leave the retail outlet. And to reduce gun violence, we passed my bill to target auto sears, or so-called Glock switches, which can be easily purchased and can convert standard pistols into automatic weapons. Now, because of our bill, gun manufacturers will be required to take steps to ensure that their guns are not compatible with these devices. And with the help of Assemblymember Tony Simone, we were able to pass our bill to once and for all stop the chop and begin the process of moving the West 30th Street heliport off of the Hudson River Park. We also took steps to make our subway system more accessible. New elevators have opened up at the 23rd and 7th Street subway station, as well as the 14th and 6th and 14th and 7th Street stations. We'll continue to work to add more elevators to the 8th Avenue subway stops as well. This, of course, just represents a small fraction of the work we've done. I passed 84 bills in the Senate this year, the most of any other state senator, I'm proud to say, many of which are still awaiting a signature from the governor. That includes my bill targeting telemarketers, called the Seinfeld bill, my bill to make financial payment apps more secure, and my bill to allow family members to seek financial compensation for emotional loss in the event of a wrongful death. Also, my bill to require private insurance to pay for neuropsychological exams for dyslexic students. There's going to be more work done in the year ahead, whether it's e-bikes, fighting illegal guns, making our subways safer, getting rid of annoying scaffolding, fighting for LGBTQ rights. We've got our hands full with an incoming new federal administration. I don't have to tell the folks at Penn South that we have to organize, not agonize. Thank you so much. It's great to see all of you.
I'm pleased to welcome Tony Simone to his second Penn South annual meeting. Tony was elected to the New York State Assembly 2 years ago and is standing up for our needs and ensuring our interests are represented. I welcome Tony to share a few words to our cooperators.
Good afternoon. I'm Assemblymember Tony Simone. I'm approaching the end of my first 2-year term in office, and I'm so proud to be representing Penn South in Albany. Penn South represents a model of what a strong, civic-minded community should look like. So first, thank you for what you do for all your neighbors in our Chelsea community. Your activism and engagement informs and inspires me when I am in Albany. I always ask my staff to think of creative and new ways to serve the Penn South community. Recently, we partnered with JASA Seniors, the Community Service Society of New York, Medicare Rights, Penn South Social Services, and Penn South Program for Seniors to teach older adults about health insurance support services offered by community health advocates. I met many of you recently at our shred events and vaccine drives and hope to see you in person at future events. This past year in Albany, I passed a range of new legislation. Governor Hochul signed my bill with State Senator Brad Horman-Siegel to develop new open green space and uses on Pier 76 in Hudson River Park, and also create a community-led process to facilitate once and for all moving the West 30th Street helipad off of the parkland. I also passed legislation to allow for absentee and early mail ballot drop boxes, just like many already have, which will increase voter confidence in elections while making voting easier. In the new year, I'm introducing new legislation to protect our pets from dangerous drivers, crack down on corps who lie about environmental commitments, strengthen our local arts community, and take new approaches to our mental health and substance abuse crisis. As I said last year, affordable housing continues to be one of the top issues in Albany and throughout our city. I'm committed to ensuring we aggressively defend the affordability of Penn South long into the future. I know many of you continue to be rightfully distressed over the city's move to take away traditional Medicare from public employee retirees and force them to enter a for-profit health network, a Medicare Advantage plan. This move would affect over 250,000 retired city workers. I am strongly against any diminishing of health care for anyone, especially those who've earned their benefits through a career of service to their city. I was pleased to see this move blocked in court last year and have taken steps on the state level to further protect our retirees. I am proud to co-sponsor the Health Equity for Retirees Act in the Assembly by my colleague, Assemblymember Ken Zabrowski, and will continue my strong support when the bill is reintroduced in January. I will always fight against attempts to chip away at healthcare and to win greater comprehensive and affordable healthcare for all, or why I support the Health Act. My office is always here to help you, and we're located just up on 8th Avenue on 29th Street. Any issues you may need assistance with, we're here to help. I look forward to continuing to work closely with Penn South into the new year. I wish you a successful shareholder meeting. I hope to see you in person soon. Thank you.
I would like to thank all of our speakers for joining us today. While the presentations are concluding, there is more to the program. Coming up, we'll be announcing the results of our proxy raffle. After that will be the question and answer period of the program, including a live call-in. To end this portion of the program, I'd like to acknowledge the cooperators whose artwork is featured in this year's annual reports booklet. We will display their images on screen along with their names.
I would like to remind everyone that the election is happening today, Sunday, November 17, 2024. In-person voting takes place in the Building 8A Community Room located at 343 8th Avenue, right near the intersection of West 27th Street. Our bylaws say that at least 1/3 of shareholders must participate in the meeting to achieve a quorum, and voting is one way of participating. Achieving a quorum is one reason that we encourage shareholders to submit a directed proxy form. If you submitted a proxy form, either online or by paper, you are automatically entered into a raffle for a gift card. The top prize is a $1,000 gift card. The election company provided a list of all households that submitted a proxy by the deadline, and we conducted a raffle. The winners will be displayed on the screen in a few moments. They may collect their prizes at our security office by presenting a government ID showing their address. If you did not submit a proxy form, or if you wish to change your selections, please vote today, November 17, 2024, in the Building 8A Community Room from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Your vote will supersede your proxy. Once again, the polls will be open in Building 8A Community Room today, November 17, 2024, from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Thank you, Ryan. We have provided cooperators with two options for submitting questions. The first option was to submit a written question prior to the meeting. We will take those questions first. The other option is to ask a live question by Zoom or by telephone call. The information is on the screen. It will only remain on the screen for a few more minutes, so you may want to take a picture or write it down. If you join us by Zoom or by phone, please note that you'll be kept in the waiting room until it's your turn. We will invite you into the meeting and call your name. In the meantime, you may wish to continue following the program live on the Penn South website or RCN Channel 99. We may not be able to field every single question, but we'll do our best to address as many as possible. We will keep the Zoom and call-in information on the screen for a moment longer so that cooperators can finish writing the information down. Then the program will continue. Please stay tuned for the live portion of the program. We'll see you there shortly. And now the winners of the proxy raffle.
Welcome to the live portion of the Penn South 2024 annual meeting. Let me introduce the panelists today. President Amber Nicosia, Treasurer Matthew Barilli, General Manager Ryan Dietzick, Assistant General Manager in charge of operations John Seymour, Financial Manager Gary Bachrock, and Legal Counsel to the Co-op Dean Roberts. As a first order of business, we usually ask if someone wants to make a motion to adopt the 2023 annual meeting minutes and waive the reading of those minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the 2023 annual meeting minutes and waive the reading of those minutes. Does anyone second that motion?
I will second that motion.
The motion is seconded by Matthew Barilli. Hearing no objections, the motion is adopted.
Thank you. Now we will move on to the question and answer portion of the program. If you're watching today on our live stream and you would like to ask a live question, there are two options. If you're on a computer, you can use the link that's on the screen, and which I will read out loud. meeting.pennsouth.coop/2024 question. You can type that into your web browser to join the Zoom meeting. And if you're calling by phone, the number is on the screen, and I will read that out loud as well. That number is 929-205-6099. The meeting ID is 818-0874-8920. Once again, if you're calling by phone, the number is 929-205-6099, and the meeting ID is 818-0874-8920. And to join by Zoom, type meeting.pennsouth.coop/2024 question, and you will be redirected to the Zoom meeting automatically. If you decide to join by Zoom or telephone, please mute the live stream on your computer or on your television and listen by Zoom on your phone. That's because there's a delay in the live stream. If you're watching on the website or on RCN, you will not hear your name when we call it until it is too late. So please stay by your computer or phone and we'll get to you. So we invite cooperators one at a time to ask their questions. So you may start joining now and wait your turn. But before we get to the live calls, we gave shareholders a chance to submit questions in writing prior to this meeting, and we will answer those first. Once we are done addressing those, then we will go to the live calls. For questions submitted in advance, we've already determined which panelist will address the question. I will now start with the first question. Linda Lowenstein from Building 5 asks, what do you think of an online system for maintenance requests? And if so, feedback on when the issue will be addressed. Is this possible? This question will be going to Ryan Dietzick.
Hi, great question, Linda. Yes, this is possible, and we are definitely in support of the idea. We're currently testing solutions at the very moment and evaluating software products that will allow residents to request and schedule repairs online and then get status updates from emails. This is something we've been working on and investigating for a while. We do have some challenges. For example, our current work ticketing software is part of our property management software. It is integrated with our inventory supply and our finance and accounting department records and billings to shareholders. So out-of-the-box solutions are often not a fit for our operation because we follow unique regulations. We have to operate differently than other real estate properties. We often need to have customization built for our needs. As you know, we've been making great strides in recent years, moving more processes online, like offering the option to fill out the income affidavit on the resident portal. So long story short, the answer is yes. We support the idea of online maintenance requests, and this project is in the works.
Thank you. Moving on to the second question. Joanne Lehman from Building 4 asks, can we get a doorman in all of the buildings from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. in every building because of the danger in our area now? I think people will pay for this extra cost to feel safer. Someone broke into Building 4 2 weeks ago by just pulling and pulling the door till it opens, then tried to get into an apartment. So this question will also go to General Manager Ryan Dietzick.
Hello, Joanne. First, I want to assure you that we take matters of security very seriously. The matter of a doorman has been considered by the board a few times. Ultimately, this is a board policy decision. I had my team perform an analysis of the costs. You suggested one worker, one shift per day staffing, 10 lobbies for one shift would require 19 employees. That's because of coverages on the weekends, holidays, vacations, plus relief workers to cover lunch breaks, which is required under the union contract. This number doesn't even cover the supervision costs. This would increase our staffing by more than 15%. Our workers are covered by 32B&J contract, and doormen would be covered by that contract. At today's rate, each doorman would cost the co-op $100,000. Although the union salary is slightly less than $60,000, the rest of the cost is for healthcare, insurance, taxes, and other payroll expenses. Covering just one shift would be more than $2 million annually, and likely more for supervision. It would need to be passed along to the maintenance contract, a maintenance increase of at least 6.5% initially. As you all know, due to inflation, this would increase annually. Finally, if the goal is to increase security, we would also need to funnel everyone through the front door. Residents would no longer be able to enter their buildings through side entrances. The last time this matter went to the board, the expense was a non-starter. However, at any point, the board has the option of revisiting this topic if and when the need arises. Good question.
Thank you. Moving to the next question. B. Corbett from Building 5 asks, why are there so many abandoned cars in the lower garage? Abandoned in quotes. Could you explain why they are stored there for so long? Can't anything be done about the situation? This question will go to President Amber Nicosia.
Thank you. It is frustrating. Currently, we don't have rules that mandate that how frequently or infrequently people are allowed to use their vehicle. But we do have some things in place. So management requires people who are getting a reduced rate parking spot to be able to provide an updated registration every year. And if they ignore the request, then management reaches out to them directly about giving up the spot. Management also conducts walkthroughs of the garage, and we note for our own shareholders, if a car isn't being used, if there's dust on the vehicle, then we'll reach out. Very often, we're just doing checks to make sure that the shareholder on record is okay and that there's somebody in the unit that we can contact and get in touch with. It's another way for us to make sure that we're engaged with the residents and can often cue us maybe if something is going on in the household, they need assistance. About 1/3 of the garage spots go to people outside of Penn South. These are people throughout the neighborhood that have a contract directly with Impact Garage, who's the leaseholder for the space, and we don't have any say in how they use the garage or what is required for them to use that space. So I will say it is frustrating. That's why we do have steps in place. We're trying to address it. And again, if people have other ideas that are constructive, I'm always happy to hear them because that is such and that is an amenity that's in such high demand. So,
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Lisa Simon from Building 5 asks, what is happening with enclosing the balconies? This question will go to General Manager Ryan Dietzick.
Well, a lot of good questions. Thank you, Lisa, for this question. I know you asked the same question last year. While it's not fully resolved, there has been some progress. As many of you know, the permits are now required for these enclosures. Working with our architect and expediting firms, we have filed test cases a few times with the Department of Buildings to get existing enclosures approved. We learned through the process that DOB is not willing to legalize all structures at once, and also that many of our existing enclosures do not meet the current code standards. However, at the same time, the city is not forcing us to remove them. The mass filing strategy was meant to keep costs down for shareholders. Please note that the DOB is always amending these rules. With that information in mind, we stopped the strategy of attempting to proactively mass file of our buildings. In the process, we learned a few things. The DOB will require any new enclosure to be filed with the permit. The building code requirements are very rigorous and for the new enclosures to meet not only safety, but also energy efficiency. The bottom line is, by adding an enclosure, the city considers the interior of the building to be larger. We then must file paperwork indicating the new built square footage of the building with calculations to prove the zoning compliance. Requirements like these add up to the point that the administrative costs and professional services of an architect, which is required by law, could add up to be more than the cost of the enclosure itself. So now that we understand the current process for properly filing a new enclosure, our professional consultants are currently working on finalizing the costs associated with installing enclosures in an effort to keep costs down and standardize the fees. We have one test case in process as we speak. There'll be more to come on this.
Thank you. I'm going to use this opportunity to remind the people who are wanting to call in or Zoom in that the information is on the screen. You will be in a waiting room area. You'll be able to listen to the program from there. So if you are calling in or joining by Zoom, please make sure that you have muted the live stream either on your TV or computer, and that you're listening on Zoom. And for those of you waiting, I see 7 people currently. We will get to you once we've finished with the questions submitted by shareholders in advance. We're going to move on to the next pre-written question. It comes from Thomas Weir in Building 7B, who asks, why did the board grant a new laundry contract to Hercules? Based on the level of maintenance Hercules has provided under the old contract, I expect I will have to do my washing at a local laundromat before the new contract expires. This question will go to General Manager Ryan Dietzick.
Thomas, I want to start by addressing the issue of machine failure. Our old contract was supposed to be 7 years long. In 2013, it was the industry standard at the time. The new standard is 8 years. Our last contract was set to expire in 2021 at the peak of COVID-19 pandemic. If not for that timing, we'd have bid out and the renovation of our laundry rooms would have been done in 2020. However, the board of management felt that it was very poor timing to replace equipment and renovate rooms. Renovations required closure of the rooms, and that we send people to buildings, increasing traffic in the other buildings, and use of their laundry rooms. That was not advisable during the public health emergency. Making matters worse, the pandemic caused severe supply chain issues, which resulted in massive delays, and there was a spike in the cost of new equipment. Those costs would have been passed on to shareholders in the form of much higher laundry prices. We expected the supply chain issue to eventually resolve, which it did. We extended the existing contract on a short-term basis to get us out of that period. The machines are now 13 years in operation and ready for retirement. We can all agree. The board created a laundry committee and spent months evaluating bids from various companies to ensure the board made the best selection for shareholders. The board had chosen to move forward with Hercules, which represented the best deal for the cooperative. The laundry rooms will be refreshed and new energy efficient machines will be installed. The process will begin in January of 2025.
Great. Moving on to the next question. Paula McKinnon from Building 2B asks, why are there constant leaks in our buildings resulting in various stages of mold being present, which must be remediated? What do you see as a solution long-term to this maintenance issue? Right now, this issue is only addressed on a case-by-case basis. I was out of my apartment for 7 weeks this past summer due to remediation in my bedroom and bathroom. Thank you. This question will be addressed by Assistant Manager in charge of operations, John Seymour.
All right. Hi, Paula. Sorry for the inconvenience of your specific situation, which I'm very familiar with. I would note that the majority of the cases involve situational leaks that are unit specific, such as plumbing issues in the apartment above, unreported repairs, tile repairs in the apartment above, or cooperator caused issues such as overflows. Leak situations are not building wide, and the causes for leaks vary on a case by case basis. Therefore, that's why we take them on a case by case basis. I know you had an unusually challenging situation, and I'm sorry for the hardship that this caused. Your situation was very specific and related to 2 separate leak issues. We treat all leaks with a very heightened sense of urgency. When a leak occurs, it needs to be promptly reported, and then it can be fixed. Management then has a number of leak protocols that we follow to address the particular situation. I can assure you we take these matters seriously, and we do our best to ensure that they are resolved in a safe and timely manner. In addition to our leak protocols, we're also taking a lot of proactive approaches towards addressing leaks. To that end, all vacant apartments that are inspected are inspected, and where necessary, plumbing repairs are being made proactively to reduce future leaks. This includes replacing tub traps, cross pipes, shower bodies, drain lines, before a new apartment is put out and allocated. We have been doing this now for several years, and the efforts are ongoing. Our staff routinely performs this type of service in over 100 restoration apartments each year.
Thank you. We're moving on to the next question, which comes from Barbara Minsky in Building 7A, who states the following. She says, there were not a few squirrels killed by reckless poisoning by a company hired by the parking lot, as the board minutes said. No, there were 40 or 50 squirrels killed, and there were also crows killed, crows who visited my balcony frequently, as well as untold numbers of seagulls, pigeons, and birds. We have an obligation to care for our environment, which includes the wildlife, who either visit on the migratory path or who make their home here. In addition to our groundskeepers, inclusion of a wildlife caretaker needs to be either added or given to the current workers. They need to be educated in this caretaking. There are city and private animal groups that can be of help. This question will be directed to Assistant General Manager in charge of operations, John Seymour.
All right. Hi, Barbara. I know you're one of the few people that has raised this issue previously, and we've responded to the concerns that you've raised. I'd point out that this was an isolated incident. By our account, there were fewer than a dozen or so squirrels that were affected, and I'm not aware of the 40 to 50 that you mentioned. For everyone's benefit, let me summarize what happened. The cooperator is talking about a situation that occurred in July of this past year. The exterminator contracted by the parking garage operator had installed bait boxes for rats that contained bags of poison. These stations were designed to use fixed bait blocks, not loose bags of poison, and they didn't follow the proper procedures prescribed by the manufacturer for the installation and use of the bait boxes. Rodents gnawed through the bait stations and removed the bags, and then left the remnants of the bags and the poison elsewhere on the grounds where other wildlife were able to eat them. Once we learned about the incident, our workers scoured the property for any additional bait. We also instructed the parking operator to change his practices, which they did so immediately. I don't want to be dismissive of the incident. We're very concerned about the wildlife as well as cooperators' pets. I just want everyone to understand that we've taken all the necessary steps to address this and prevent this issue from occurring again in the future. And once again, it was an isolated incident. And while it was the parking operator that caused the incident, management was swift to get involved and quickly resolve the situation.
Thank you. The next question comes from Jane Buchanan in Building 9, who states the following. The city has proposed rezoning the garment district encompassing 42 blocks between 23rd and 41st Streets between 5th and 7th Avenues, but extending to 8th Avenue between 28th Street and 30th Street, bordering Penn South. The plan allows for larger and higher buildings than currently exist in the districts. The rezoning section at 8th Avenue will directly impact Penn South. Will you meet with elected officials to discuss redrawing the zoning line to 7th Avenue? This question will be directed to President Amber Nicosia.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane. This is something that we've been following very closely. It's something that we're concerned about, not only for Penn South, but for the larger Chelsea neighborhood we all are living in. A little bit of background about this project. This is an area of land that historically has been zoned for manufacturing. A lot of it is part of the traditional garment district. And then what happened is the city has proposed changing the zoning to allow for both more housing and for different types of commercial businesses. The change that's being proposed or has been proposed would not only allow them to build new buildings that are taller, it allow them to convert existing buildings as well. And we're looking at a change anywhere between like 25 and 50% of an increase in the height and the size of the buildings there. So this is very, very dramatic from what we currently have. The city says that they want to do this in order to put more affordable housing into the area. But again, it will dramatically change the size. And currently, we haven't heard any mandates specifically about what that affordable housing will look like. So I know that term is used quite a bit, and we have some concerns about when they use that term affordable housing, what specifically are they talking about? I served on Community Board 4, and more specifically, the Chelsea Land Use Committee during the Hudson rezoning and development. So I definitely understand the impact that these large development projects can have on the community. So there's like the immediate concerns, there's noise, there's traffic, there's dust, there's people being relocated and businesses relocated that we've come to depend on. But it also will change the character of the community we live in. And I know I certainly have concerns about that. I know a number of people have also talked to me about that. So the long answer is yes, we have reached out to our electeds. We're trying to get more information about timing, what we can do in terms of maybe pushing back on the size of this, especially close to residential communities that already exist in the neighborhood, like Penn South. And also we're trying to figure out how we can push our local electeds to create a forum so that our residents have a place to raise their concerns themselves. So that's what we're working on right now, hearing more about the rezoning.
Thank you. The next question is coming from Ricardo Irizarry in Building 7B, who asks the following. Before considering any increase in maintenance fees. Could the board please outline the specific steps such as audit or assessments of maintenance operation, vendor contracts, to identify potential cost-saving measures taken to ensure that our current operations are as efficient and cost-effective as possible before approving increases in fees? This question will go to Treasurer Matthew Burley.
Hello, Ricardo. Thank you for that question. These are all important matters that you raise, and I'm glad to say that we are doing all of those things on a continuous basis throughout the year. I will address each of the matters you raised. We have a board-approved process that was described in a monthly board meeting notice. We have a financial team that leads this process. The team consists of the president, general manager, treasurer, assistant treasurer, financial manager, and assistant financial manager. This team meets throughout the year. Beginning in October, we begin the process of analyzing cash flows, capital expenses, to see where we're headed. Unless there are unusual circumstances, any necessary increase would be approved at the January board meeting. Then we work on educating the community on how the decisions were made. Our operation is audited by a third-party accounting firm every year. We also include these auditors to share in our projected budget work so that we can feel we're on the right track and using the right methodology to plan for the possibility of carrying charge increase as well as capital expenses. You asked about maintenance expenses and vendor contracts. We have a bidding process that is rigorous, a policy that's in place that expects us to stick to that process and that bidding process. Projects are sent to a minimum of 3 bidders, and the bids are sent directly to our lawyer for leveling, not to management. This ensures the highest standards of oversight. I also want to point out that our management team goes way out of their way to find cost savings. Their efforts go far beyond what most co-ops do. There's almost an endless number of examples, but I will mention a few which have also been mentioned earlier in the meeting. Our general manager worked for 7 years to get Con Edison and the Department of Buildings to agree to a new method of replacing our gas lines. As we mentioned during today's presentation, this approach saves about $700,000 per building, or $1.4 million per double core building. The easier route would be to simply follow the standard industry practice and have shareholders foot the bill. Our manager actually created a new standard in the industry for the benefit of our cooperators. Another example is the gas engine we are replacing in the powerhouse. We dismantled our existing engine to take parts that were viable in the new build, and the other parts we actually sold online to generate revenue. This gas engine going forward will save us very large amounts of money in our energy purchases. Another example, the EV charging stations are another area that we are generating new revenues, which we are very pleased about. We also discussed the $700,000 grant that we were just awarded by our City Council member, Eric Botcher, and the City Council Speaker, Adrian Adams. This did not occur on its own. Our general manager and board president put a lot of time into lobbying and making a case for these funds. Currently, we are lobbying the city to change its rules regarding a tax abatement program so that our underground pipe replacement project can be eligible. That's what we are currently doing. In the past few years, I can point you to our loan refinance, our award from the Paycheck Protection Program, the MAG Partners deal, and the effort to lobby the city to keep surcharge revenue in our pockets. These are all massive undertakings that saved us tens of millions of dollars and that are not part of the day-to-day practice at most places. Our management and board go to great lengths to save costs and find new revenue sources so that maintenance fees are kept low. We do our best to write about these matters in memos and in the annual reports booklet. I encourage you to read. You will see a lot of details there, but if you could see for yourself how much work goes on behind the scenes to save money, you would realize this is an area where we really stand above our peers in the best way possible.
Thank you. The next question comes from Kara Alosio. Pardon me if I didn't say the name right. Kara asks, what actions is the board taking regarding the sale/demolition of St. Columba's Church on 25th Street? Are they talking to the diocese? Talking to elected officials/city council/planning board about zoning and/or designation of landmark or green space? This plot of land is in the center of our campus, and we need to advocate and get involved with how this land will be used. This question will go to President Amber Nicosia.
Right. Thank you. This is an important question, not only because of where it's located, but because of its history. I mean, the church was built in 1845, I believe. A lot of our cooperators were members of this church, and we have a good friend of the family who worked there for many years. So, as you mentioned, the property does not belong to Penn South, so that limits our ability to dictate what's going to happen from on a legal level. However, Ryan and I have been actively meeting with the Archdiocese. We had reached out to Councilmember Eric Bodger. He was able to set up a meeting with Ryan and I and the Archdiocese from the time that their doors closed back, I think, in the end of 2022. And since then, we've been doing everything that we can to be actively engaged in conversations with them. As far as the landmark status, that's something that we learned that the church would have to go through that process willingly themselves. It's not something that we can do from the outside. I can tell you that they're not interested in preserving the property. They want to sell the property and offload it. So that's the process that they're going through right now. Ryan and I are, again, trying to keep those lines of communication open. We've been able to have the Archdiocese connect us with the real estate broker that they're using for the sale of the property. And we're doing that because it helps us for a number of different reasons. One of them is to deal with some of the immediate issues surrounding the structure. There's been some garbage there. There's been some people who are spending a lot of time in front of the church. It helps us address that. There have been issues with the facade. If you walk by that location, you'll see this black mesh on the outside of the church, and that's because there was damage on the exterior. And Ryan worked really hard to convince the Archdiocese to invest about 3 times the expense of getting that black mesh up instead of traditional scaffolding. And one of the concerns that we had is that if scaffolding went up, we wouldn't know when the building is going to be sold or who is going to be sold to, because again, we're relying on third-party information to come to us. The Archdiocese is traditionally doesn't share a lot of information with the community when a property is being sold or there's work going on in them. So we are kind of tentatively trying to keep this relationship going. And a lot of it is just so that we can be the first ones to possibly hear about any changes to the site. So again, we don't have a say in what happens there, but we're doing everything that we can to remain engaged so that we can share that with the community as soon as we know.
Thank you, Amber. We are 3 questions away from coming to live callers, so we will handle the last 3 pre-written questions. I see about 10 people who are waiting to ask a live question. So just as a reminder to those folks, please make sure that you're listening through the Zoom on your computer or on your telephone, not through the live stream. There's a delay. You won't hear your name called if you're listening on the television or your computer. So please be aware that we're about 3 questions away from doing the live call-in portion. I'm going to go to the next question, which comes from Jeffrey Handler in Building 7A, who asks or says the following. Penn South is sitting on significant green space between 28th Street and 29th Street. Do you have a vision for development of a spectacular garden for sitting and walking? Perhaps something similar to Jefferson Park in the Village. This question will go to President Amber Nicosia.
Thank you. It's an excellent question. We do have these open spaces, and we are trying to figure out how to better utilize them. Over the years, the board of directors has looked at that particular location, and we're trying to figure out a better way that we might use it, open it up to more of the community. There are some limitations with that site. We have a landscape architect who's been there a number of times, who's drawn up some plans. There are some issues with the fact that it's on an incline. Anything that we do would have to be compliant. It would have to be leveled, and a retaining wall would have to be built, which is a large expense for that area. And we also have a number of our utilities that are running underneath that location that are tying the buildings together. So it would be more expensive to do something in that location than, where the new green space is, that a lot of these issues have been resolved. That doesn't mean that we're not interested in doing it. So I think we're just trying to keep the options open. But it's a good suggestion. If you're interested in the board better utilizing our open spaces, I would recommend please send a letter to letters. Mario, what's the email address? I think it's letters to
the board at pennsouth.coop.
At PennSouth.
I hope I got that right. I'll double check and
We'll double
correct
check
myself
it.
if
I'd like to make sure after this meeting we
That's
get it,
correct.
because it is correct.
Thank you.
Because people have some great ideas, and the 3 facilities that are opening up came from shareholders doing just that, reaching out and talking about things that they were really passionate about, that they thought would be a good use of the shared space. So please share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Amber. The next question comes from Donald Kennedy in Building 8, who writes the following. Good afternoon. I am always troubled by the format of the shareholder question process. Open forum meetings, 1 building at a time, 1 question per shareholder, put directly to the board and to those responsible for various aspects of management, finance, security, maintenance, etc., would definitely be more appropriate and in the spirit of those who created the original Penn South concept. I realize this might be a potentially complicated arrangement. However, in the spirit of preserving a strong collegial relationship with all shareholders, especially with the myriad of challenges to the continuation of the existence of Penn South looming on the horizon, the more direct the contact between management and shareholder, the stronger our bond. This question will go to Board President Amber Nicosia.
Thank you. I certainly agree with you. I think communication is incredibly important. I grew up at Penn South. I grew up at a time when we used to have, lobby meetings in all the buildings when there were important things going on. And I really relished that opportunity to be able to ask questions about things that were impacting our particular buildings. The board is a volunteer group, so we're always trying to weigh the time that they can give us with doing things on a larger scale so that we're more efficient. But and because I like communication, I'm trying to figure out more ways to kind of connect with our community. We're doing a lot more town hall style meetings. We're doing a lot of town hall style meetings around our finances, around things that are happening in the community. I think the MAG partners are coming to the community, I think about either 2 or 3 times a year for open meetings. We've been doing town halls on the green space, on organics and recycling, and a number of other areas. So If we can figure out how to do this, for me, communication is also key, because when our residents are better informed about what our challenges are and what our limitations are under our regulatory agreements or under local laws, it helps us make our population better understand some of the decisions we're making. So we do put out a very detailed annual report. We're hoping that people will go through that. Again, if you have questions as you read it, reach out. I'm always accessible. I have a lot of people who stop me. I'm open to the idea of doing a town hall style meeting that is a little bit smaller and a little bit more focused on each individual building. But I would need the board to help me figure out how to do that in a way that best manages everybody's time. So definitely interested in it, but bring that back to the board and we'll see about how to make that a possibility.
Great, thank you, Amber. The next question comes from Paula McKinnon from Building 2, who asks, what large-scale maintenance projects do you anticipate in the next several years? There's a tremendous problem with the pipes. What are future plans to replace them? Thank you. This question will go to General Manager Ryan Dietzick.
Hi, good question, Paula. In today's program, we discussed some of the big infrastructure projects. I realize you submitted your question before you had a chance to see today's presentation. If you or anyone missed today's pre-recorded presentation, it would be on our website soon for you to watch at any time. And of course, the details are always in the annual report that we have the most current information to share. Every single project we expect to do this year is listed on our capital projects page. Many of the multi-year projects coming up are described in my manager's report and in the treasurer's report. A few of the big projects that are either being considered or are scheduled in the near future that's not listed, upgrades to the gas piping in residential buildings used for cooking, roof replacements, underground pipe replacement is a continuation, compliance with energy efficiency standards, Local Law 38, elimination of diesel fuel usage and the production of electricity. Currently, it is a natural gas engine that's going to be installed in the powerhouse, as mentioned earlier. Local Law 97 carbon reduction requirements, electrical submeter replacement, and elevator modernization of our 30 elevators. An example of some of the recently completed projects, the HUD mandated replacement of the Federal Pacific circuit breaker panels in all the apartments with new breaker panels, the new constant air regulators, and these are the car damper. If you read from the minutes, we've completed all the common hallways in all apartments that have vents in the apartments. We replaced 4 roofs this last go around when we did our FISP work, and of course, the big project was FISP. That's the old Local Law 11 brick facade work on all the buildings. You mentioned pipes. Clearly, the replacement of our underground pipes is a huge project spanning many years, and we have made substantial progress in recent years. Note, there is a montage on some of those efforts in this year's annual presentation meeting video, if you haven't seen it. In terms of pipes inside the buildings, the heating and cooling pipes were replaced about 10 years ago. Between 2012 and 2015, we had an HVAC project for those who weren't here at the time. They have an estimated life expectancy of over 75 years. So we should be in good shape as far as those pipes. The hot and cold water, domestic water lines are generally replaced as needed. There isn't any systemic problem with these pipes. However, for years, there were issues with water discoloration, temperature, and flow on the hot water side. It was not related to the pipes themselves. We tried numerous fixes over the years, and it took a long time before we found an approach that worked. Our engineers kept studying the issue, and about 2 years ago, we implemented a test case, excuse me, in Building 8, and it really made a difference. After that, we did the same process in Buildings 1 and 6. This work is quite expensive, and so we're not planned to do in every building, only as we observe and issues persist. We will roll out the program this year. From the annual report, you'll see that Building 4 is scheduled. We'll continue to monitor the water quality. If needs arises, we now have a solution for that. In your particular case, I believe there was a problem with the insulation on the actual dual temperature lines. In the middle of the summer, we have chilled water going through those lines, and if we don't have proper vapor barrier insulation intact around those pipes, it can condensate, and that condensate can then drip from the pipe onto the floor and then affect the interior space. So that's an ongoing maintenance item that we always have to constantly monitor and make the proper corrective action whenever that's detected. Obviously, shareholder usage is a big concern in a multifamily environment. People live below a line of apartments above and are subject to behaviors. So if you flush your toilet and it overflows, that could cause a leak unrelated to pipes and so on. So there's a few things that that can cause leaks, and it's not shouldn't be compartmentalized into a whole pipe replacement project, because I don't believe that's the correct path at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And that actually concludes the pre-written questions. So we're about to move now into the live portion. I see a number of people have been waiting for a while now, and we are going to start inviting them into the room. The first person we're going to call in is Danny Valdez. I'm reading it based on the names that appear on the waiting room. For the people who have called in, after Danny, we're going to call in Estelle Rosenthal. So as a reminder to people, when you're invited into the room, please unmute yourself. You will have to, if you're on Zoom, click a button to approve that you're being invited to the room as a panelist. That's what it should say on your screen. And if you're on the phone, you're going to have to press *6. So we're ready to invite Danny into the meeting and ask the question. And please, Danny, when you're and all callers, say your name and say the building you're living in, and then start your question. Danny, you are in the meeting.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me, and thanks for this meeting. It's always fun to hear what's going on at Penn South. My name's Danny Valdez. I live in Building 6B, and I want to ask about micromobility. I know right now we have a total ban on micromobility devices, but as a person who would like to use a micromobility device and did have one that my son and I used a lot, I really want to put this issue forward. It's e-scooters, e-bikes are not going anywhere. They're an environmentally sustainable way for people to get around the city. And I know for myself, my son and I, post-pandemic, it unlocked the city for us in a really amazing way. And I was kind of devastated when the devices were totally banned here. I understand the risks, and especially the fact that we had a fire here at Penn South, but there are certifications for these batteries. There are ways that we can incorporate them in the same way that we have to register our pets. We could register our bikes and submit them to inspection, pay a fee. I think there are ways of doing it where we can encourage people that have these devices to use them, and in a way that is safe for the co-op overall. I know there's a committee that's working on this already. I'd like to ask for updates and just really push for this to be a priority for the board to figure out maybe a short, medium, and long-term solution. I understand there's a storage option being looked at, but that could take a really long time. And so I'm wondering if there's a way, that we could incorporate this more into the inspection regime that we all have to do and all of that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for the question. So I'm going to open this to whichever panelist wants to respond to this question.
Amber, can I take a stab at first address? Danny, thank you for your question. I was surprised I didn't see it in the pre-submitted questions because there is a lot of shareholders that are interested in updates on this topic. We're currently in contact with the city as far as zoning and what can be done on our property versus what can be done in front of our commercial buildings versus what can be done as far as safety guidelines to allow these devices in our buildings. And it's an unfolding kind of environment right now because of sensitivity and the devastation a fire of this magnitude can cause. Being firsthand to see what happened in Building 7 and to deal with the shareholders' concerns and fears, my heart really went out to them because the fire can be so intense. Any fire is terrible, right? So, but this is something that can really be intense. So, at abundance of caution, the board made the decision to roll back the allowance of the e-bikes, as you mentioned, until we can get a better handle on it. One of the safest ways to roll out the program initially was to think, okay, how can we roll this out on our property and not have the actual batteries in the buildings? There was a video circulated by a man in China that actually was carrying a battery into his apartment building, and it ignited in the elevator, and unfortunately he succumbed to his injuries. And we don't ever want to see something like that happen. And regulation is kind of catching up, as you indicated, so we're happy to see that. I have been in contact with Con Ed's micro mobility program. As you know, or maybe you don't realize, is that we don't have a lot of connections to Con Ed. Our power plant is standalone. But we do have a connection in our parking garage. I'm not condoning putting these devices in the parking garage, but they may be a consideration near the parking garage that we can leverage the Con Ed program. The caveat to the Con Ed program is that it has to be accessible to the public. So it's not going to be a Penn South solution, but it is a type of solution that we're exploring right now. Our engineers and our expediting firm is constantly evaluating opportunities and zoning changes under the city of Yes. It seems like this is going to be something that's high priority, and we're anxious to see how that develops. Sorry for the long answer, but it's a very influx kind of topic right now, and we're trying to make the best, give the best solution right now for the short, mid, and long-term plans for the co-op.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to announce the next couple of people that we're bringing into the room, starting with Estelle Rosenthal. And after Estelle, we're going to go to Karen Basket, and then we will go to a caller whose cell phone ends with the digits 2384.
And before we go to the questions, I want to correct, because it was just
Oh, sure.
So we were talking about ways to communicate with the board of directors. We've updated the process. We've made it a little bit easier. You can just go to the Penn South website, scroll down to the bottom where it says Board of Directors, and if you click on that, to the bottom of the page is a web form. So you can just type in your question or your concern, and then you can hit submit, and it'll come automatically. So you won't have to do a standalone email anymore. So we've updated that. successfully, and that's available. I just want to let you know, go to the Penn South website, Board of Directors, and you can submit a question. So from there, we'll go back to Estelle.
Thank you, Amber. All right, we're going to go to the next person. I will try Estelle Rosenthal next. Estelle, if you're able to join us, please accept. And I think we did invite you and did not see you. So we're going to move to the next person. We'll keep you in the queue.
Estelle is.
Estelle, you are here.
Yes,
Great.
here I am. I'm sorry.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Actually, I'm just showing how bad my computer skills are. I did not intend to ask a question. I don't know how it happened. So
You're all good. Thank you for joining, Estelle. We'll go to the next person. So the next person we'll invite in is Karen Basket, and I'm also going to read out the last 4 digits of the next person we're going to bring in after that, who's calling by cell phone. So again, please queue yourself up and get ready. The person after the caller we're inviting has a cell phone that ends in 2384. So we're going to invite Karen in to ask her question now. And you are in the meeting. Please say your name and the building you live in, and then ask your question. Okay, I don't hear from... Oh, I see you, Karen, now on meeting.
Oh, you can see me. I can't see you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. This is Karen Basket, Co-op Council Building 7A. My building, my side of the building is staring at this new building and all this equipment on top of the roof. Are they planning on putting up a level of baffling? I mean, right now it looks like there's just something temporary there. Anybody could just walk off the roof. But, you know, we'd like them to sort of I know they need to keep it open. We're not asking for a roof, but some sort of baffling like they did with the machines that were on the former building to mitigate the noise. Because the idea of listening to a vacuum cleaner 24/7 is just upsetting. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So once again with this, we'll open it to whichever panelist wants to address this question from Karen.
Amber, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think Ryan's got a lot of experience with this recently. I think,
So believe it or not, Karen, you are at the forefront of my mind whenever we talk about this issue and the creation of noise and machinery. I know you have expressed and dealt with me over the years a long time, and I've tried to be responsive as much as possible. So Amber and I meet with the developer and the construction team on a weekly basis. We go over concerns and ask questions, and they fill us in on updates, and we have a healthy dialogue going back and forth. This week, I asked for a walkthrough schedule of when they're going to put up those the barrier, the sound attenuating barriers that are going to go around the equipment. So apropos, good question, good timing. I just asked for that schedule this week. I don't have the schedule yet, but it will be going up. The machines are not in operation right now. As far as the perimeter of the building, if that's what you meant by your question, they are putting up fencing that is going to go around the perimeter of the building. So obviously nobody could fall off. They have to meet the building code. But as far as the equipment, there's going to be an enclosure around the equipment.
Thank you, Ryan. We're going to bring in one of the people calling by telephone next. The last 4 digits of the telephone are 2384. And after that, we're going to call in Kathleen Stewart, who's joining by Zoom. And I'm saying the names so that the people can prepare themselves to join when we call you in. So please make sure you're near your computer or your telephone, whichever one you use to reach us. I also want to let folks know who were part of this. Please exit once you've asked your question and left. We're leaving you on just in case that's the way you're going to hear your answer. But once we've answered your question, please leave, and you can watch this on the live stream on pennsouth.coop, or if you want to tune into channel 99 on RCN, if you have RCN service. But please, once you've asked the question, exit and follow us on the live stream. Great. So now to the caller whose number ends in
Hi,
2384.
This is Helen Rosenberg.
Hi, great. So Helen, say the building
Yes,
you
can
live
you hear
in,
me?
and
This is
then
Helen Rosenberg.
yes, we hear you. Helen, do you hear us?
Yes.
Great. So say
I'm
your
in
name and the
6B.
building you live in, and then you can
Yes,
ask your question. You can go
Okay.
ahead. Thanks.
I'm in 6B. It may be that the MAG building is best financially for Penn South, and I do believe that the board and staff tried to maintain as much green space as possible and get some somewhat affordable housing, etc. But there was, I believe, a legitimate outcry by shareholders because we were given so little information or choices, I think in about 5 days, and all at the last minute about a profit-making development on our campus. We were given way more time to consider and then vote on which lighting fixtures and wallpaper we wanted in our hallways. This is my question. Excluding any period when information must legally, in a process, be kept private, did this outcry from shareholders lead the board to embrace the idea that future important decisions such as this be introduced, discussed, and possible referendum held whenever possible with shareholders at a much earlier time in the process? And thanks for taking my question.
Thank you for the question. We'll open this up to whichever panelist would like to respond.
Yeah, I'd like to address it. This is really important. You are absolutely 100% right. The time frame of which this decision was made was extraordinarily tight, and it's not ideal, and we would always strive to have a lot more time and a lot more communication with the community about what the process is like when it comes to any type of changes, particularly development changes. The issue that we had was that a decision had to be made in order to meet the 421A Affordable Housing Program. That's the state program that allows for affordable housing developments in order to meet their deadline. And so for us, we had an option to make a decision on this project, which is 70% market, 30% affordable housing, or run the risk of having 100% market rate. And that was what the issue was that we were dealing with at the time. So I agree with you. The board agrees with you. Management, who had to, be involved in this, all agree with you. I think we have never gone through that process before, and we didn't realize what some of the hurdles were in being able to get things on campus that we knew that we cared about and that our regulators cared about. I mean, HPD and HUD both wanted and advocated for us to do something that incorporated affordable housing. That said, absolutely, anything that we do going forward, the community needs to be better informed as we're going through the process. And I think we have a better sense now of what that might look like now that we have new affordable housing programs in place.
So, Amber, if I can just embellish also that we went through this process during COVID, and the original RFP that went out was to replace the commercial building with a commercial and another new commercial building. And then when the COVID hit, it wiped out the whole commercial market, and we were getting indication that we would not get any return on the money, and it would be just horrible conditions. So we opened it up for the residential piece, and that created a whole new opportunity for the co-op. And then what you said is correct. The 421A incentive mini tax program for developers to build affordable housing caused us unconsidered rush to meet the program and to not thoroughly share with the community the options. right? We thought we were always going to have plenty of time to go back to the community and talk about the commercial building that's going to be built there and vet who the bidders are and so on and so on. But because of COVID, it changed the whole dynamic of the initiative.
Thank you. We're about to bring in the next people to ask questions. I just want to point out to those who are watching, if you want to ask a question, we're down to only 3 people in the queue waiting to call. So this is your opportunity to ask the panelists any question that you want. We have, ever since moving this format to virtual format, stayed on as long as it takes to answer all the questions that come before. So please take this opportunity if you're interested in calling. I also want to remind you, if you're on the Zoom and you're not here to ask a question, if you're just here to listen, please don't stay on the Zoom. Please instead go to the live stream, which is on pennsouth.coop, our website, pennsouth.coop. It's on the homepage, or you can also go to RCN channel 99 if that's what you have. But please, when you're done asking a question, leave the Zoom. The next person we're calling in is going to be Kim Oliver. And after Kim, the person with the telephone number ending in 8792. So after Kim, it will be someone whose number ends in 8792. So please be ready. And you will get a prompt to unmute yourself. So we're going to ask Kim in right now. All right. In order to be in the meeting, you will get a prompt that asks you to join. And if you don't press that, we can't bring you into the meeting. You have to accept the invitation. So we're going to move on to the next caller. We'll leave anyone that doesn't respond. We'll put you back into the queue, and we'll invite you one more time before the meeting ends. So if you're having difficulty, just please note that you have to respond on computer by accepting the invitation to be brought into the meeting. And if you're calling by phone, you will get instructions on what buttons to press. So we're going to go next to the caller whose telephone number ends in 8792. Please state your name and the building you live in, and then you can start with your question.
Yes, hi. My name is Kevin Ng. I live in building 6B. And I have 2 questions. First question is, do you have a list of banks that would finance the purchase of Penn South? If I in the future move to a different apartment, because I know only seems like Penn South Credit Union does that. But I was wondering, do you have a list of other banks that would do that? And then my second question is, are the buildings preparing to have keyless entry? Because I do see some scans of the boxes that allow for scans, card scan maybe, for the residents to use card scan instead of keys. So those are the 2 questions right now.
Thank you. We do. I just want to point out that we've asked for efficiency, since we have 5,000 residents of Penn South, for people to ask one question. We might let this slide, but we will direct this question, or both of your questions, if people want to pick it up. But I want to also point out the next person after yours has a telephone number ending in 8372. So to the 2 questions just asked, does somebody want to pick up one of them?
Amber, can I start?
Yeah.
So great question, Kevin. Yes, keyless entry, electronic key. It's an initiative we started and very excited about. We're going to be offering to our residents. It's part of the annual report, and also I think part of the several board report on proceedings. If you take a look at that, we've reported that. So we're anxious to get it out and rocking and rolling. We have just some minor tweaks right now, and we expect to come out maybe the first quarter of 2025. We've had keyless locks on the property for different clubs, And so we've expanded that and upgraded the software to roll that out. So it's a great opportunity and amenity that we're going to be offering to shareholders. So good question. The other is, do we have, I think you asked for a list of prices for our apartments. So two things. One is if you're interested in moving, there are wait lists. It's internal wait lists that we have, and that you had to submit in writing what you want and what you're requesting to go on to the internal wait list. Mario, who's on this call right now, has worked with us in our wait list program, and we have posting the equity prices for the apartments while you're on that wait list. So at any time you could see what the pricing is. It does go up monthly, fractionally, but it's there now at shareholders' fingertips. So good question.
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit to that question.
He was
in
asking
terms
about
of the
lenders.
financing. We have a number of, you can call the management office and they'll be able to share this with you. We have a number of credit unions that are working with our shareholders to secure financing. Because of the way that we're structured as a limited equity, it's very difficult for banks to justify providing loans to us since they cannot own the apartment in the case if somebody were to default. But we do have several credit unions that are knowledgeable about affordable housing, support affordable housing, and have worked with our shareholders. So again, reach out to the management office and they'll give you a list of the current credit unions. I think there are 3 or 4 right now that are working with shareholders.
Wonderful. Thank you. The next caller that we're going to invite in who has a number that ends in 8372. After that, we will be inviting someone whose telephone number ends in 0581. So for people on telephone, 8372, is this you? Please say your name and the building you live in and ask your question. Thank you.
Hi, Julie Hodorowski, Building 6A, and thank you for all your time and thoughtful approach to our concerns. And this may be for Matthew Borelli. The shortfall for 2025 that was mentioned in the report, I'm just wondering, is that something that needs to be remedied? Like, and how? And because I was concerned because reading about co-op problems, like for example in Florida, where the co-ops didn't keep up with maintenance and improving reserve. There were all kinds of problems. So I'm just wondering, how does that shortfall get made up?
So assuming that we determine that there is a shortfall, we're in the process of figuring that out. Ultimately, it would be made up by carrying charge increase. A major change that we did last year was we've gone from doing a mandatory 1% to a mandatory 3% each year. And we're hoping that that will mitigate and slow down the pace at which we need carrying charge increases. We are in the midst of the process where the team is looking at forecasts and presenting these numbers to the board, looking at capital, and trying to determine how we cover that shortfall, if there is a shortfall. As I said, we have a very robust process at this point. We will keep the community informed, and we'd like the community to know that we begin this process in October each year so that there is a routine and a schedule that the community can be ready to pay attention to. You need to follow the minutes because as much information as can be distributed, we will be distributing that. The board has not made any decisions at this point about what to do. We are in the process of figuring out the numbers. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Matthew. I want to invite Kim Oliver back one more time, who was brought into the meeting, didn't respond. So we'll try one more time and then Kim, if you are joining. I think I do see that you've joined. So please unmute yourself and you can state your name, the building you live in, and your question.
Kim Oliver, Building 9. I did not make an appointment to do this. What happened was my computer and my desktop didn't work. So Helix had to get into my computer and fix it. So it's been fixed and I like Helix. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to a caller whose last four digits are 0581. And after that, we will have a caller whose last four digits are 8691. So to the caller who has a phone number that ends in 0581, please state your name and the building you live in and ask your question. I can see you're on and unmuted, so please introduce yourself. Okay, we're going to put the person with the telephone 0581 back into the attendee list for a moment. Bring in the caller with the phone number 8691. We'll give you one more chance to join if you were having technical difficulties. So to the caller whose number ends in 8691, please state your name, the building you live in, and ask your question. Okay, we see that you're joined, but we don't hear you. So we'll do the same thing. Do I hear something?
Am I on?
Yes, you are. Please say your name, the building you live in, and state your question.
Yeah, thanks. This is Tom Rosenthal, Building 2B. Thank you for taking the questions. My question is a little snarky. For a board that prizes community above all, how is it that we are meeting on Zoom and not live and in person, as is our norm?
Okay, thank you, Tom. Who would like to address that question?
I'll jump in because this is a decision that we made last year. So we need we need time going into the meeting, and the board actually did discuss this because traditionally we have met in person. And we do get quite a bit of feedback after these events from people, whether or not they would prefer to meet in person or whether or not they'd prefer to meet via Zoom. And it is quite a mix. I like meeting in person and have an opportunity sometimes to have discussions, but very often those discussions aren't happening during the meeting. And when you have it on Zoom, it allows everybody's questions to be heard by the whole community. And a lot of times people have a lot of the same questions. So I'm happy for that feedback, Tom. If you know other people who are really passionate or care one way or the other, let us know so that going into next year when we're kind of structuring what this meeting is going to look like, we have a better sense of, how to meet everybody's needs. One of the things that we have gotten back is that people felt that if they missed the annual meeting, they missed an opportunity to hear about what their neighbors' concerns are. So meeting online gives us an opportunity to kind of reach a broader audience. You don't have to be just here available for the day. You can kind of Zoom in or telephone in from anywhere you are. So we're capturing a broader group of people than we would traditionally. But again, put it in writing. Those of you who are listening today or watching today, let us know what your concerns are so that as we plan for next year, we can take that into consideration.
Thank you. We are running out of people on the queue, but want to let folks know who have joined and whose questions have been answered that it's actually very difficult to keep track of who's who's been brought in, especially if it's a number. So if you've had your question asked, we would ask you to please exit, either hang up your phone or leave the Zoom on your own, because I see a bunch of numbers and many of them have called. Thank you. I can see people hanging up right now. Same thing if you joined by Zoom. I'm going to invite back the person who was unable to speak and give them one more chance. Their number ended in 0581. So if your telephone number ends in 0581, we're bringing you back in one more time. If you can hear us, please state your name, the building you live in, and your question. Okay, I think that person may have stepped away from their device, so we're going to bring in what looks to be the very last caller. Someone with the telephone number ending in 8073. If you have a telephone number ending in 8073, you are on. Please state your name, the building you live in, and your question. All right, I do see someone that just joined, so we'll give you one more chance for the person on 8073. If you are having difficulty, we will come back to you once more. But we have a person, Matthew Anton, so we're going to bring Matthew into the meeting. If we don't get any more calls after 8073 is given one more chance, that will be the end of the program. One of the advantages of this format is that we've actually been able to answer all questions. So one of the pluses is we will do that, but I only see that caller and we are getting one or two more, so we'll do our best. Matthew, you're up. We're going to please state your name, the building you live in, and then ask your question. Hi, Matthew. We can hear you. You're muted at the moment, so please unmute, and then you can state your name, building, and ask your question. I can't tell if you're having technical difficulties, Matthew. So we'll come back to you if you want to rejoin. It sounded like you may not have wanted to ask the question. We will give one more chance to the caller who ends in 8073. So try number 2 for person with the telephone number ending in 8073. You're up. Please state your name, building, and the question. Okay, that person has left. Couple more people joining late. Mark B. Mark B, you are up. We're bringing you into the room right now, and please state your name, your building, and the question you have for the panelists. Mark B.
Hi. I hope you can hear me. I live in Building 9. My name is Mark Block, and I'm just wondering if you guys have any update about how it's going with the MTA's project on 28th Street, if they're on schedule, if there's a forecasted end to that project, and if you guys have any thoughts about that. It did end up being quite disruptive, I must add, but I'm thankful maybe there's an end in sight.
Ryan, you want to take that one? You were at the most recent meet. I think you just met with the MTA on this project.
Yes. Hi, Mark. Agreed. It's been a very invasive project on 28th Street. We have monthly meetings with the MTA to go over their progress, their reconfigurations of the street and their protections, as well as their schedule. And right now, it looks like they're on track to be completed by May 25th. That work will be underground. As far as our concerns, They're looking to be completed on the surface by first quarter 2025. They're going to be moving the enclosures that they have right now and changing the traffic pattern in the next few weeks. They have to remove all those supportive excavation piles that they drew and created to support the excavation so they could build the substation in. So the next phasing will be them removing those piles and then relocating the work zone. After that, then they'll come through and do the street, and they'll always continue the sidewalk repairs also. So in the next couple of weeks, you'll see some activity to the good, I should say, that they're moving the process along. There's nothing holding it up. They're not behind schedule, which is all positive as well. So we're looking forward to them completing this work.
Thank you. All right, we're a couple more people left. Matthew, we'll give you a chance one more time because I can see you're still on and attempting to pose your question. So I'm going to assume there was technical difficulties. Matthew, we will bring you back on, but please, if you're not interested in asking a question, this is to anybody, please exit the Zoom. We'll bring in first the caller whose telephone number ends in 1302. Then we'll bring in Mark and Diane, and it looks like that's it. So to the caller with the telephone number 1302, please say your name, the building you live in, and the question. All right, we don't hear anything, so we'll give you one more chance after Matthew. Matthew, I'm going to bring you in one more time. Matthew left the meeting. Okay. I'm going to go back to the person with 1302 as their telephone number. Last call. Okay, and it looks like our very last caller for the 2024 annual meeting will be Diane. So Diane, we're bringing you in now. Please state your name, the building you live in, and the question for the panelists. Diane, you're going to have to accept the invitation, and I think you just did. Thank you.
Hello, can I be here?
Hi. Yep, we can hear you now. Thank
Great.
you.
I'm a little bit late to this meeting, so I'm not sure of everything that has been discussed, but I want to address one thing that you guys were just talking about, which is the Zoom versus in person. It can be done as a hybrid. I teach fitness and for corporate locations and especially media companies, and we do the class with Zoom at the same time, so people can come and join on Zoom or they can be there in person. And it seems like there's a lot of technical issues. I mean, I've only been in this meeting for a short period, unfortunately. And it seems like a lot of people are having difficulty joining or at making it work. So that seems like it would be good, especially for, some of the older people who are not so tech savvy. So I would hope that's something that can be considered. Another thing that was discussed was the keyless entry. I know that's been in the works for a while, and you did say that it was going to happen as a nice amenity. When is that going to happen?
All right. Diane, I'm just going to jump in for a quick second, and this is to you and to anybody else who missed portion of the meeting. We recorded a presentation that covered many topics of interest, including highlights from the annual reports booklet, and that presentation, if you missed it, will be posted on the Penn South website later today. So for sure by tomorrow, you can go and watch it and learn about the topics that you may have missed today. And the same goes for anyone else that may have missed that portion of the program.
I'm just going to.
And I do believe, yeah, please.
I'm just going to jump in real quick, Diane. We are hopeful for the first quarter of 2025. We're trying to work out some of the kinks with it. There's been some hardware issues that we're trying to resolve before we roll it out completely to the community. But we are making progress. I know a lot of people have been anxious for this. And I know the senior center is really putting us to task. I know this will help some of our residents that are struggling with traditional hard keys, and we know that, we're aware of it, and we're really trying to press to make sure that we can get this rolled out quickly.
Thank you. So this concludes the call-in portion. Everyone that has called in or joined by Zoom has had an opportunity to ask a question. So thank you to all who did. Thank you to everyone who participated, who joined and watched and learned about the important issues in this community. I'm going to once again acknowledge all of the panelists today. President Amber Nicosia, Treasurer Matthew Barilli, General Manager Ryan Dietzick, Assistant General Manager in charge of operations, John Seymour, Financial Manager, Gary Bachrock, and Legal Counsel to the Co-op, Dean Roberts. So today is also the day of the annual election. I want to remind everyone that your participation in the annual election is very important. The Penn South bylaws require that an election is held every year to elect new board members. Votes must be cast by at least 900 eligible shareholders. That represents a quorum of 1/3 of our co-op households. If we don't have a quorum, the election must be repeated at considerable cost to the co-op. So if you did not submit a proxy, you can vote in person today. The polls are already open and they will stay open until 7 p.m. tonight. The poll is located at the Building 8A Community Room, located at 343 8th Avenue. That is at the corner of West 27th Street, right where it intersects. So again, the polls will be open until 7 p.m. today at the Building 8A Community Room, located at 343 8th Avenue, right near the corner intersection of West 27th Street. If you did submit a proxy, but you wish to change your selections, you may vote in person, and your vote will supersede your proxy. So if you want to make a change, you have that option today to vote in person, even if you submitted a proxy. The in-person vote takes precedent. We will discard your proxy and replace it with your vote today. The polls will be open until 7 p.m. I also want to remind everyone, if you joined during the program and you missed the presentation at the beginning, this will be on the Penn South website by tomorrow. You can go to pennsouth.coop and watch the presentations from today's meeting. And as the final order of business, we need a motion to recess until the close of the polls at 7 p.m. and for the tabulation of those votes in the annual election, at which point the meeting will close. So I want to ask if anyone wants to make the motion.
I'll make the motion. I make a motion to recess until the close of the polls at 7 p.m. this evening, where we'll tabulate the votes in the annual election, and in which case the meeting will close.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Hearing no objections, this meeting is now in recess until the close of the polls and the tabulation of the final votes of the annual election.
Thank you all for joining the 2024 Penn South Annual Meeting.
Thank you.